Uh-oh. Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with the WBC featherweight title fight between Sky Nicolson, the champion, and Raven Chapman, the challenger. Crapped out on this pick. I was wrong about this one. I thought that Raven Chapman would be able to close the distance and get to Sky Nicolson where so many other girls could not. And I was wrong. Sky Nicolson was able to stay in character, stay on the go, on the move, pot-shotting from the outside, fighting her fight the same way she normally does with every other girl, which was surprising.
She didn't have to change anything.
She didn't change anything. She treated Raven Chapman and dealt with her the same way she treats and deals with everybody else. The most I could give Raven Chapman in the fight, 1, maybe 2 rounds.
Raven is a good fighter.
Even if this wasn't the best advertisement for her and what she can do, Sky Nicolson just staying on her toes, on the move, always moving, changing where she is in the ring and those long levers, able to get her punches out and off from a safe distance as Raven Chapman tries to advance. After a while, Raven wasn't even throwing punches. She was just trying to get close enough to Sky to try to throw a punch. She couldn't.
Each round similar to the last.
Sky was having it all her way, and occasionally Raven might get in with a looping right hand, but wasn't really able to build on it. Sky would sort of pivot off of those punches and roll them, and before you know it, she's out of striking distance.
Raven's got to track her down all over again.
Yeah, Raven Chapman's very good in the pocket when she is in the pocket, though with Sky, you have to get there, and I thought that Raven would be able to get there. She'd be able to keep on her. I must have underestimated Sky Nicholson's foot speed and overestimated Raven Chapman's. She just didn't do a good enough job of cutting off the ring and pinning down Sky Nicholson in the corners, and if you can't do that,
Fight is already lost.
Still didn't see much in terms of inside game from Sky Nicholson, or combination punching mid-range to inside. She was very much the fighter yesterday that she has been up until this point, and while that is good,
being the outboxer works for her.
Still not showing no inside game, no infighting, no combination punching. It's really only 1 or 2 punches at a time on the fly. Most won't look at that as a deficiency, but in some ways I do, because at some point you're gonna run into a fighter that can keep on you, whether it's at featherweight or somewhere else. And when they do, when that happens, what are you going to do? So with this victory, I like Sky Nicholson's chances even more against most of the fighters at this weight, most of them.
If you can do this to Raven Chapman, who's a very aggressive, very prolific fighter,
be able to do this to most of the girls at 126. Immediately after the fight, Sky Nicholson, she called out Tiara Brown. She says she's the smoke. Bring it.
Tiara's too slow.
She's got power. She's definitely got power, but I don't think she's got the foot speed to keep up with Sky, to keep on Sky. Thus, I think that fight is going to go the same way that this one did. A wide UD in favor of Sky Nicholson, who is fast becoming the face of this division.
In the absence of Amanda Serrano, who's currently at 140 pounds, en route to a Katie Taylor rematch.
Without Amanda there to simmer down Sky Nicholson, she's got the run of the place, and she is the face of this division.
The most effective.
And the most well-known. I'm still not partial to pure boxers. It's the base style that I like the least. So long as Sky Nicholson is able to stay in character like this, with all the fighters they put in front of her, irrespective of what their base styles are, so long as she can keep fighting her fight, you have to say, She's great at what she does.
It's not the most exciting for me.
Though being able to take away other fighters' strengths and other fighters' gifts, being able to force them to fight on your terms, fight your fight.
Sky didn't have a scratch on her.
That's elitism, folks. Sky is an elite level pure boxer. One of the best.
There's no two ways about it.
Congratulations to her for a successful title defense in what was a lopsided affair. In the men's light heavyweight division, we saw Olympic amateur standout unbeaten up-and-comer Ben Whitaker and his fight with Liam Cameron come to a somewhat abrupt end, anticlimactic.
Controversial almost.
What was different about this fight than any other fight that Ben Whitaker had had up until this point is he didn't have time to fuss about. He didn't have time to showboat and do cute little dances he saw on Fortnite.
Play to the crowd.
Taunt his opponent. No, he had to work. Liam Cameron did not come to lay down. Liam Cameron came to win.
Ben Whitaker, Liam Cameron. What happened there? What happened there? And by the way, when I say what happened there, I don't mean over the ropes thing. We'll get to that. I mean what happened with Ben Whitaker. I said this in a video I did 3 days ago. I said pressure's on. I said it, pressure's on.
And Ben was forced to work.
Looked uncomfortable in spots.
Liam Cameron, a domestic level guy with something like 6 professional losses, about 6. His most recent one was a split decision loss to Lyndon Otto. Kind of guy you expect Ben Whitaker to cruise past.
Somewhat of a step up from the guys he's been fighting.
You could say that. Bit more experienced, bit more capable.
Serviceable.
And he was making Ben work. He was forcing him to fight. Ben didn't like it.
You've got to, you can talk all the way you want to talk. You've then got to deliver. And all of a sudden, and I didn't like it. I heard sort of comms saying this is a good thing. All of a sudden, he almost reverted back to a normal boxer. Like just a typical, and I'm like, what's he doing? Where's the, the flashy? Because I think that flashy showboating stuff, I think if you are a traditional boxer, it's hard to read what he's going to do. So I think that stuff works for him. But he almost tried to just fight normal. And I was like, what are you doing? He tried to fight Liam Cameron at Liam Cameron's fight. And I'm like, this is not working for you. The first round was okay. And then after that, I was like, okay, this is starting to swing the way of Cameron. And by the time the fight ended, Liam Cameron was definitely on top. And I felt like an upset was incoming.
So perhaps Ben has spent too much time dicking around in these developmental fights instead of actually working on his boxing.
Isn't that what I've been saying?
Those are bring-along fights. Not the kind of fights where you need to humiliate or embarrass the guy by showboating and taunting him and doing little hijinks inside the ring. Those guys are being conjured up so you have the right opponent to help you develop in a controlled environment. And instead of working on your boxing, you're working on your Vegas act.
It's a circus.
Making a circus of it, as if you're in there with a high-level guy, that we should be impressed at what you're doing. Now, when you're doing that to ranked fighters and world-level fighters, perhaps that might be impressive, the way it looks.
Guys you're doing it with.
Just being an asshole. That's how it comes off. You're a bit of a dick. A dick bag.
No time for that shit yesterday.
There was no time to do cute little dances and little dance moves with Liam Cameron. Liam was forcing him to work in what was a more difficult fight than any fight he had had so far. At some point in the contest, these two guys, they get tangled up in each other's arms by the ropes. They go over the ropes.
They flip.
You want to pay attention to that, because the whole time they're going over those ropes, Ben Whitaker's legs are in the air. They're in the air.
They go over the ropes. Ben Whitaker's the guy who ends up on top.
His legs are in the air, and when they come down, they don't land in an awkward way, in an awkward spot.
It was bizarre.
Stays on the mat. He's supposedly writhing in agony, though, from what? What got twisted? What got injured? What happened? Former champion Maris Breedis reacted to the melee, saying, "In the fight where my opponent fell out of the ring, his reaction was strange. Usually, a person grabs the injured spot, but he just laid there. I'm convinced it was a trick to avoid further defeat."
From Ben Whitaker to Ben Whitaker.
I was just starting to put my old shots together. Ben were knackered from the second round. I really don't know what we're up with him. We're right, kind of mad. He were done from round 2. He gave me his last hurrah that round. He were really digging in, and I was saying to him, it's only the 5th round, you're knackered, Ben. But he kept on holding me, hitting me low. I knew what I had to do. that was the plan, to get him late on.
People are saying that his corner told him to stay down and pretend that he was hurt. Allegedly, people are saying that Ben Whitaker is Ben Quitaker.
He quit.
He was finally being pushed by one of his opponents he couldn't showboat against. He was finally in a fight, a real fight, and he couldn't hack it.
I think he quit.
What did he injure? When he went over the ropes, what did he injure when he was the guy that was on top and he didn't land in an awkward position? His feet didn't land in an awkward position, so what did he injure?
He didn't want to be there.
This is a guy, he's doing too much. He's doing too goddamn much showboating, too much of this and too much of that and not enough fighting. So that when he's in a fight, he doesn't want to be in one. He wanted to go home early. He didn't want to miss Better Beef versus Bivol.
This is a bad omen.
Can Ben not handle pressure? When push comes to shove.
Still early.
I don't want to overanalyze this. Looks to me like Ben was in over his head. He didn't like it. He got out of there early. But there is time to get redemption.
Still very early in Ben's career.
He still has time, plenty of it, to make people forget in his very next fight. He has time.
Be under the magnifying glass now. Every fight moving forward.
All the showboating you wanted to get people's attention, now you've got it. Though not in a good way and not for the right reasons.
Kind of bursted his bubble there in Riyadh, didn't it?
I always thought it was ridiculous that he was showboating as much as he was in what are developmental fights. That's just a waste of time. All that shows is your character, or the lack thereof, that you're that big an asshole.
It's like dunking on little kids.
Stop playing with your split peas and applesauce and finish your food.
Unless you ain't got no appetite.
Then come to the cruiserweight title fight between the reigning champion Jai Opetaia and the challenger Jack Massey. Jack showed a good chin, good punch resistance throughout 6 rounds.
This is a guy who went the distance with a former champion and a Joseph Parker and the Midnight Train hard-punching Richard Riakporhe.
Heard the final bell with both. Didn't get to hear it yesterday with Jai Opetaia. It wasn't the head punches that got to Jack. It was the body punches. Jai Opetaia is a southpaw. He leads with the right to set up the left, and he was able to land the straight left to Jack Massey's body with some regularity throughout all 6 rounds. So as the fight progressed and he was able to regularly land that punch on Jack's midsection, you saw that everything is gradually slowing down for Jack. The output is slowing down, his movement is slowing down, his feet seem heavier, he's spending more time on the ropes.
He's getting hit more.
Even if he's able to take the head punches, he seems all right with the head punches. Those body shots are taking effect, and it's only going to get worse. He's only going to get hit more. So in the 6th round, the towel came out. A feather in Jai Opetaia's cap that he was able to stop a guy that Richard Riakporhe couldn't stop, Joseph Parker couldn't stop.
He did.
Didn't cold sleep Jack Massey. Guy's tough, too tough for his own good. Corner had to stop it for him.
Save him from himself.
In what was a great display of boxing from Jai Opetaia, more competitive than the Ellis Zorro fight and the Jordan Thompson fight, Jack gave Jai a few good rounds. He did. He made him work for his meal, but he got it.
These other cruiserweight champions don't beat Jai Opetaia. This was further confirmation of what I already thought. Jai is the best in show at cruiserweight. If he can get those fights, he can win those fights.
Though getting those fights, just getting them, will prove more difficult than winning them. Very soon, Zurdo Ramirez will be putting his title on the line against Chris Billum Smith. The 2 champions are set to face each other.
I'm not surprised they ended up facing each other because that's what I thought would happen. That's literally what I said would happen. If push comes to shove, those 2 guys will elect to fight each other before they fight Jai.
So Jai's best bet at landing a unification match is the winner of the newly rescheduled Ryan Rositsky versus Noel Mikhailian fight for Noel's WBC title. I'm told that the fight has been rescheduled and it's going to be happening north of the border in Nova Scotia, a 3 Lions promotion show where before Don King was at the helm of promotion, now Ryan Rositsky's promoter is at the helm of promotion, giving him his best chance, that's his best bet, to see himself become a champion.
He's likelier to get the winner of that fight in the ring than the winner of Zurdo Ramirez versus Chris Billum Smith.
Why?
Well, I think Zurdo Ramirez is going to win a fight. I've got Zurdo winning a points decision against Chris Billum Smith, and if he does, I don't get the sense Oscar's going to put Zurdo in the ring with Jai.
No faith, no confidence that Oscar will want to make that fight. I think if Zurdo's got 2 alphabet titles, Oscar's just going to milk it for whatever it's worth and guide him away from Jai. Now, if by some chance Chris wins the fight, I could see Chris fighting Jai Opetaia. I could see that, but I could also see Chris going after the winner of Rosicki versus Mikhailian.
That's why Jai has to keep a close eye on that situation. That's why Jai has to target the winner of that fight, whoever it is.
Offer them whatever you have to offer them, because it'll certainly be more than what they have been making, than what Ryan Rosicki has been making, than what Noel Gavor has been making, otherwise known as Noel Mikhailian.
Get him in the ring.
Jai Opetaia has a head start because he just fought this weekend. CBS and Zerto, they're fighting next month. If Jai keeps a close eye on the Rosicki versus Mikhailian fight, he can kickstart negotiations preemptively.
Another great display of boxing from Jai Opetaia this weekend.
Finally, we come to Fabio Wardley's one-round destruction of Frazier Clarke, the amateur standout, the Olympian, the guy who he was just in a war with earlier this year. He dispatched him in one off a massive overhand right from right out of the devil's ass that hurt Frazier Clarke almost immediately, leaving the door open for Fabio to unload, empty the tank.
He emptied Frazier's.
Not the kind of fight that you have to overanalyze when it ends in one round. Most of us expected that it would be a repeat of the first one, that bell rings, we're going to see round 13. They're going to pick up where they left off. And in their initial meeting, it was a back-and-forth war. It was a brawl. It was everything you want in a heavyweight boxing match.
Right.
I went with Fabio Wardley to win the fight, just like I did in the first one. I went with Fabio, but I didn't think it was going to end in one round.
Wow.
I don't want to kick Frazier Clarke when he's down, but I was never impressed by this guy in spite of all of the hullabaloo about him.
I didn't get the impression that this is a guy who could go all the way and go on to take over this division. You know, like when you saw Terrence Crawford at 135.
Anthony Joshua, in the early stages of his career, he showed you that if nothing else, he is going to go on to become a champion, and he is going to go on to become one of the somebodies, the major players at the weight, and at minimum, he did that. I never got that impression from Frazier.
Nope.
Going in, I was more impressed with what I had been seeing from Fabio Wardley, the snap on his jab, the power in that backhand, the sharpness of his punches, his mobility.
He's quick for a heavyweight.
Explosive, too. And that the guy doesn't come from some deep amateur background, he comes from white collar.
Wow.
The way I see it. Between what happened to Ben Whitaker in his fight with Liam Cameron, Frazier Clarke suffering this loss, and an anticipated loss en route in the Chris Billum-Smith fight, because I think Zerto's going to beat Chris. If Ben was hesitant to match his guys against other guys' fighters,
If Ben Shalom was hesitant before, he's gonna be even more hesitant after this year.
these are his prize stallions. Ben Whitaker, Frazier Clarke, Chris Billum-Smith. These are his prize stallions. These are his heavy hitters, and look at what's happening to them, one by one.
What does Fabio do now?
Shouldn't rush. Doesn't have to. Think about the sequence of fights that he was just in. From knocking out then unbeaten David Adelaide to knocking out a then unbeaten Frazier Clarke. It took him 2 fights to do it, but he did it.
First fight was a war. Second fight,
Not so much. I think he's earned himself a hometown defense. I think he's earned himself an easy one. If anybody has it heavyweight, he has. He's on an amazing run, but now he needs to tread carefully and not move too fast.
yeah, sometimes when a fighter's riding high, that's when they're most vulnerable. They feel like they can't be touched. They're invincible.
Sometimes, and sometimes that's not a good thing. Curious to see who he'll fight next, but I think they should take their foot off the gas a bit. Fabio has earned an easy one.